Okay.
We're ready.
Yep. Mr. Chair, if you would like to call your meeting to order.
Good evening and welcome to the Ward One Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting for Monday, January 9th, 2023. Can I get a roll call, please?
Ginsburg,
Here.
Daftari,
Present.
Piskovich,
Absent at this time.
Ross. Absent this time. Shrimp.
Here.
Starrick. Absent this time. Thiessen,
Here.
Wager,
Here.
Werninghouse. Absent this time. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item A2, public comment. This item is for either public comment on any action item or for any general public comment and is limited to no more than 3 minutes for each commentator. Have public comment.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do, starting with Nathaniel Vass, followed by Jennifer Matt-Tillman.
So close.
All right.
So when you get up, make sure you say your name and your address.
Yeah, my name is Nathaniel Bass. I live at 2161 Riviera Street, and there's a development going on, potential development at 2100 Riviera. That is a condominium being placed. And I just wanted to come today to kind of voice my concern with that. It's fairly close to my property, because where I live, I'm kind of in a single family neighborhood that is well established. The neighborhood is an older neighborhood and has pretty nice area, and bringing in a condominium like that, I think will affect it negatively. A couple of the concerns that I have with parking, we're next to the park, so we end up doing a development like that there. It just stressed out parking. There's no on ground parking in the development. It's all on underground. So being that close to the river, it's been my concerns. And then also trash. Their trash layout doesn't look like it really will work either. So just wanted to voice my concerns, say that the neighborhood is kind of getting together and making public comments, and that it is that we are aware of it and that we are quite concerned with what that does in the future to our neighborhood. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Jennifer Mattillinen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Madeleine. I live at 1415 Samuel Way. I'm here with my family, and we are here in opposition for the 2100 Riviera Street project. As my neighbor just said, we do believe that it's going to impact our neighborhood in a negative way. Looking back on our lease and our title statements, back when the house was built in the 1960s, it was a single family home, and then it was rezoned for multifamily. And so I actually live right behind where this construction will be happening. And I would like to just say that I'm concerned about shadowing, the height effect, privacy, looking into our backyard, even looking at the plans once again. The windows, the way that the windows are, they're looking into our backyard. We'd like to address that. We'd like to address flooding. We're gonna get another storm tonight. Obviously the garbage is a big thing. And I just want to say thank you for your guys' time. I really want to be an activist for this. I think it would impact our neighborhood in a negative way. That's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate your guys' time.
Thank you. Public comment.
There's no other, is there any other in-person public comment today?
Lori, were you going to do public comment?
For the Gold Plaza?
Well, you had written.
Yeah, I would like to speak.
We're doing public comment, so
You're welcome to speak now or at the.
on the agenda item.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
All right, you're there, public comment.
There are no public comments indicated on Zoom. If you wish to give public comment, please raise your hand. There's no public comment, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item A3, approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting, January 9th, 2023. Has everybody had a chance to review? Are there any changes or corrections? Do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda? With Ron first. Gary, you want to? Okay. First,
I'll second.
I think we'll give it to Gary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. How about on?
Nico, are you in favor of approving the agenda?
Approved.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion, anyone opposed? Hearing none, we'll approve that. That's approved. We're gonna move on to item A4, approval of the minutes. We have two of these to approve, so we're gonna start with August 8th, 2022. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Any corrections? We'll need a motion to approve. And Rhonda, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. We'll move on to the minutes from November 14th, 2022. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
Yeah, I have a correction.
Okay.
On item B1, the update on the 100 Riverside Drive, at the end of the first paragraph, it said displacement of 23 residents, but it was 23 households in addition to the apartment origin.
Any other corrections? I'd like to make a motion to approve
Would they be approved
with those changes.
with that change?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No, I'm sorry.
Passes. Thank you. We're gonna move on to item A5, council liaison report.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope you can hear me okay. I wish I was there with all of you, but I came down with a little head cold yesterday and moving through it quickly. So I'm hopeful that I'll be in good shape to attend the city council meeting on Wednesday. It's our first city council meeting of 23. Really excited to get the year started off at the council. We have some interesting things on the agenda on Wednesday. After many, many years and a lot of delay, we are going to consider an ordinance to address the connection fees for new development. And we've seen a whole lot of new development that has had to have the privilege of paying for connection fees to our sewer system in 2014 dollars. A lot of that North Valley's development would have paid a lot more money and a lot of the multifamily came on, but the council never got around to doing a rate study and increasing those. They did, however, get around to escalating the rates for sewer service that we all pay out of our households or through our rents. And those have been going up about altogether 50% in the 10 years I've been on. So growth has had a free ride, a lot of growth, and households and ratepayers have been on a consumer price index escalation. So we're finally going to address that, and I'm excited for that. The saddest of news came forward today, and that was yesterday's officer involved shooting when an officer of ours, Sergeant Mayfield, took shots. I think he had 4 altogether. I spoke with our chief today. He's gone through 1 surgery. He's in the hospital. He'll go into likely other surgery. The suspects are apprehended. And I just want to let you all know and emphasize this is like the worst case scenario that I've had in my mind for the last 10 years that I've served is an officer. Fortunately, he survived and he is considered, he's in critical but stable condition and he is anticipated to survive. But I was at the city as an employee when Officer Bohatch was murdered on Vassar Street. And I can't tell you how deflating it is to a public agency when you lose an officer. And we have been so fortunate in the 10 years that I've been on to not lose an officer. This is the most serious injury an officer has sustained. And it is something that Chief Soto and I talk about a lot. You know, thank goodness we've all been safe. And it happened on his last week on the job. Tomorrow or Wednesday at our council meeting, per our charter responsibility, the council will be confirming the person that the chief wants to hire as our next chief. Her name is Kathleen or Catherine Nance, and she'd be coming from Stockton. And I anticipate that but it's just tragic. And our thoughts go out very much to Officer Sergeant Mayfield, his partner, who I cannot remember, but it happened in Ward 1 in an apartment complex I know very well. And I understand there was tremendous participation by all of the residents there. So some Ward 1 residents really stood up and complied and then provided assistance. So that is great. And I know we have RPD here to go over you know, what's going on their perspective in Ward 1, but I also want to call to attention the officer involved shooting that took place on December 22nd, right in Wingfield Park. The body camera images have been released of that video, and it is just daunting to me to see an area that I travel so much, I know so many of us do, be the place of a, you know, a crime like that. So, you know, there's concerns, and I'm waiting because I asked all year and never got the information from the city manager's office on our homicide numbers. We know the unhoused people, we had a lot of them die out on our streets this year, and I'm really looking to look back on 22 and see how we're doing as a city on our homicide and our street fatality deaths. And that's an indicator, just a barometer to some degree of how we're doing as a community. The next thing is the weather. It's been a big one. Ward 1 is doing okay, all things considered. The power outages were spotty in Ward 1. NV Energy with their franchise. I think there's, you know, when the council redoes the franchise agreement, I think it's going to be a new day. We're operating under a 1970s agreement with Nevada Energy, and you know, they're investor owned now by a different outfit, and it'll be a new day for a council to negotiate a franchise that makes sure that they're going to be investing in our grid in the way they should be. But those conversations haven't started at the city, but a city that's up on its game when it does this 25-year exercise will really be looking at instances like this and trying to have some experts on their side to let them know how the grid is operating, how you're being served. So if any of you were out without power, I will say that Nevada Energy was responsive to my inquiries, proactive in talking to me. And then also when I did flag issues to them, they addressed that and brought in other resources. I'm very hopeful that we're not going to see some of the tributaries that we see coming down from Collin and the Marthium area flood. We've been lucky that we've had some investment in Ward 1 since the 2016, 2017, 2018 years, particularly around Aquila Way. So hope. I am hearing a few problems that I think need addressing. And this is why I've always asked our manager to bring the winter preparedness report to the council so we can hear from all the departments about how it goes and refer that as a reference point. But the plows are having troubles going in cul-de-sacs, and it has not been explained to me why they can't get into cul-de-sacs. So that's something I'm flagging and looking into, you know, my concerns. Particularly as we take so many more household deliveries like UPS, FedEx. I've seen some videos of those people being stuck out in cul-de-sacs at night, no good. And also clearing the pedestrian ways. I saw a woman with a cane standing on Arlington Avenue the other day at Mount Rose Street, waiting for a bus because there was nowhere for her to sit on the bus stop and put her feet on the ground unless she wanted them a foot into snow. And I don't know why we can't hold RTC accountable to go clean up all their mostly inadequate bus pads that they have in the few areas that they are still continuing to run buses. So that's a problem. And I have conveyed that to one of the RTC representatives, Commissioner Hill. And I've also put in a request for safe route to school sidewalk clearing on California Avenue, because that's kind of a no person's land going along that brick wall or that cement wall in preparation for school starting back up tomorrow for the Reno High students. And then one last thing, this is kind of interesting. I get a lot of publications, and I've received a publication about an issue that's maybe going to the United States Supreme Court by about 17 states are bringing it forward. And I tried to flag it to our state attorney general. And this is a question of whether or not states can regulate the trains and train operations when they block city streets effectively. You know, they're 19th century creatures with a lot of authority to interstate commerce and given a lot of rights back in the railroad days. And we have the main stem. We all know that. We have the most critical anchor across, track across the country. It was, well, you all know the story of the UP and the SP. I won't go forward on that. But Ward 1 is blocked quite a bit by poor land use decisions of a previous era that we don't want to repeat. But I'm talking about down White Fir, and mainly where we've had growth in that Patagonia area. And then also we have maybe 4 or 5 other at-grade crossings. And sometimes blockages occur. I have the back number to go to call Omaha if there's a blockage, the switch engine. But I think this would be tremendous if states are ruled to be able to, and local communities, restrict blockages. Best practice is to not build and create any more at-grade crossings if you can, but it's an issue that I spent a lot of time on when I first came on the council, and I know impacts a lot of our neighborhoods, and I just want to pass that on if anyone's listening who's been impacted by train blockages. And that is all I have. I'll stand for any questions if anyone has any, just, if not, have a great January till February and stay dry and warm, hopefully, and safe out there.
Thank you. Any questions for Jay? I don't see any.
No.
Thank you, Jenny. We're going to move on to item A6, staff liaison report.
Actually, Attorney, Chief Innovation and Experience Officer, for the record, just as a reminder to this body and reintroduction of new community liaisons, Tyler Shaw and Abby Mayorga. Tyler will be Councilmember Breckus's primary support administrative function. However, we do operate as a team to ensure that all constituent services are being handled timely. So you need anything to them, please feel free to reach out or contact nabs@reno.gov for quick response. Also, to flag for this group, we are showing that your tentative date for your February NAB is scheduled for Monday, February 13th. And unless there's anything from the council member or from you, Mr. Chair, I have no further updates.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to business items. B1 RPD quarterly report for October, November, December.
Hello, I'm Brian Dye. I'm a lieutenant with Reno PD. I got hired in 2003, so I've been on a little while. And although it's my first time with you guys in Ward 1, generally when I read just the raw data, no one cares. So I kind of have done what most people have asked, and you guys let me know if you want me to make adjustments for you, and I will. But I kind of pulled the top 3 crimes, and I kind of read some of the reports. I read about a dozen of each type to look for trends, and so then I have some advice on what to do to kind of mitigate some of those things. So looking at Ward 1 specifically, the biggest things I saw was destruction of property, and then stolen vehicles, and then also vehicle burglaries. And so the destruction of property, I read a lot of tire slashing. So it's kind of like in the Midtown area. Some people had their car was their apartment complex or on the street. And then a couple of people, although there was no suspect information that was viable, they thought maybe it was a jilted X or something like that. And then there was a couple of trends where like rocks that threw a car. We didn't make make some arrests, and typically in colder months, a lot of times what happens is people throw a rock through the window and wait for us. We come arrest them, and then they're out of the cold for a day or two. So that's kind of why we've seen that trend. And going to the Grand Theft Auto, I couldn't believe, normally in the winter, people leave their car warming out, and that's how it gets stolen. But in this, from the ones I researched, predominantly people left it unlocked with the keys or like a hide a key in there. So if you do that, stop. Don't have the car unlocked and accessible to someone because you guys are all normal people, so you think normal. But if you were thinking like a criminal and you just walk down the street and check every door handle, sooner or later you're gonna get lucky, find one open, and then the key's in there. Double lucky for you, drive yourself out of gas onto the next. And then as far as vehicle burglary, same kind of thing, keep your car locked. Any valuables you do not have them out. A lot of people tend to like to leave their phone in the cup holder or a wallet or a bunch of change. It doesn't make sense again to normal people to break the window or go inside to steal $2 or $3 worth of change. But if you're awake all night on some drugs, you don't really think normal, and a couple bucks is a couple bucks. 4 or 5 cars, you got nothing for drugs. So those are kind of my go-to for the top tips. I can't remember which one you, but one of them, they asked about the homicide stats and then significant injury practice from last year. So we had homicides, we had 22 homicides in 2022, 5 of which were potentially justifiable. And that's kind of all the data we tracked for that. As far as the traffic accidents that were significant injury or fatal, we had 32, 23 were fatal, 9 were not. Looks like 7 of those had an alcohol nexus, 11 were unknown. That's kind of, they don't want to break it down too much further than that, so.
Is that citywide or just Ward 1?
Citywide.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yes, and they have, so I don't have the significant accident stats from 21 or prior, because I just kind of got this data, like a little, they make little summaries for our executive team, so I just get like a little box like this. But in 2021, we had 25 homicides, and in 2020, there was 24. So we're down a little bit, even though in light of recent events, this is our 3rd Oscar Bowl shooting in a month. So that's pretty atypical for us. Anybody have, you guys okay with that format? Is there other top 3 good for you guys? Do you want something different, or how can I amend that for next time? No, that works. No lot of reporting stats. Didn't think so. So
I have a question about what goes into the numbers. I know people report minor porch pirate type of burglaries. And I don't expect that you're gonna come investigate somebody's $10 Amazon box disappearing, but when they file that report, if they do file that report, does it get pulled into this data?
it does, it'd be entered as a larceny. So for burglary, it's a semantical thing, but you have to go inside of a car or a house for that, but the porch pirate thing is pretty common around the holidays because everybody's getting twice, 3 times the boxes, unless you live with my wife, and there's always boxes, so yeah. But generally, those are really, really hard to solve. Ring cams have really, really helped with a lot of that. So those tend to get routed to our first division, and that sergeant will review them, and if they have evidence, they tend to look for patterns and trends, and if it's enough, because it's pretty prevalent. So if it hits a certain threshold, they will assign it out. If there's
So reporting into this so-called what might seem trivial crimes could potentially be beneficial. Then.
absolutely reported. And on that note, generally that in progress crimes take precedence over past tense crimes. So it's unlikely that you'll see an actual cop come out for that kind of crime, for like a porch piracy thing. You might get what we call a CSO, which is a community service officer. That's a civilian that goes out and takes those kinds of reports, or you'll probably get referred to an online option, which is actually the best for you guys. You don't want to wait 5 or 6 hours to talk to someone when you can spend 5 or 10 minutes uploading it. All that data gets processed, and we look for hotspot mapping and things like that. And we can address it. So yes, please report, even if it's trivial or seemingly insignificant, or it feels like, oh, nothing's going to happen, they're not going to catch this guy. It still gives us that data to look for hotspot mapping. We have crime analysts that are way more tech savvy than me that can make little fancy stuff, and we know to kind of drive around certain areas certain times of the week.
Any other questions?
I'll just, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you. Thank you, officer. I think that's a very nice presentation. You wanted some feedback. I think that's adequate. I think highlighting some of the notable ones that we've had when you come, and maybe even ones just on our periphery. I talked about the Wingfield one, but that's just right across the street from Ward 1. So, but thank you very much. That's helpful. And thank you for closing the loop on those questions about the year-end dashboard trends. Appreciate it.
Questions? Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We're gonna move on to item B2, input on Wingfield Park, Barbara Bennett Park Master Plan by Stan Tech Consulting. This is for information only. Discussion and feedback regarding existing park facility and potential new facilities.
You should let us know real quick. Will you?
You two are on.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. For the record, my name is Frida Mercier. I am the management analyst for the Parks and Recreation Department. Next slide, please. So before you today, agenda item B2 is a presentation to gather input on the Wingfield and the Barbara Bennett Parks master plans. In September of 2022, the Reno City Council approved an agreement to retain the services of Stantec Consulting for the development of these master plans. And this is our very first stop in our public input process. Next slide, please. So presenting alongside me today, we have Barb Santner from Stantec Consulting. She is the landscape architect and project manager for the development of these master plans. Next slide, please. And I'd also like to introduce you to our other team members that are working on this project. We have Jack Hawkins of Hawkins Architecture. He is providing expertise in regards to the amphitheater that's located at Wingfield Park. We also have Gary Lacey. He is the whitewater consultant, and he's actually the original whitewater consultant who first developed the whitewater park at Wingfield Park when it was first created. And then we have Barbara Nazarowick. She's also with Stantec, our landscape architect. So this is the team that is working on this project. And here's our agenda for today's presentation. In a moment, I will hand over the presentation to Barb Santner, who will provide you background on the project and the parks themselves, tell you more about the project schedule and timeline that you can anticipate. And then at several points throughout the presentation, we will ask for input from the board. And then we will also provide information about next steps for the master plan. So first, just some housekeeping. During the presentation, we will be soliciting input from the board, but at the conclusion of the presentation, we would like to open up public comment and get input from any participants who are here today. So if you have any questions or would like to make a comment, please just raise your hand at that time, and the meeting will be recorded and available to access the City of Reno YouTube page. So with that, I will hand over our presentation to Barb Santner.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to sit down if you don't mind here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Spread out. So.
Again, I'm Barb Santner, landscape architect and planner with Stantec here in Reno, and I just want to tell you that we're very honored to be working on the master plan for both of these parks. They're some of the most recognizable ones in the downtown, and we intend to study the history and the background, along with really getting a lot of public input to develop a plan that really makes the parks iconic for our city. And with that, here's a little background on both of the parks. They're both located on South Arlington Avenue between First and Island in the heart of the Riverwalk District, less than a mile south of Interstate 80. And as Karina mentioned, in 2021, the city, well, actually, you didn't mention this part, but I was going to give a little further background. The city identified the need to do master plan updates for the park as a result of the work being done on the Arlington Avenue Bridge replacement projects by the RTC. And it seemed to make sense to look at the parks and what kind of improvements might be desirable in the long run. Along with some of the impacts that would occur in that area as a result of the bridge projects. So as Karina mentioned, City Council approved a contract in September 2022 with our Stantec team. And another point is the last real master planning or planning done on the park was the actual Whitewater Park done in 2003. So again, we're exploring upgrades to new facilities, new amenities, and coordinating with the bridge project. And of course, community input is key, and we're really looking for a lot of community input. Next slide. So Wingfield Park, of course, is an island in the Truckee River. It's split by Arlington Avenue. First Street is on the north, Island Avenue is on the south. It's a 3.7 acre 2 parcel that was acquired for $10, sold by George Wingfield in 1920 for use as a public park. He was one of the state's more powerful figures, and at one point was the richest man in Nevada for some time. Before the transfer of ownership from Wingfield, the property was known as Belle Isle, and it was used by the community as a pleasure resort, featuring a dance hall, open air theater, small boat rentals, and roller skating. They hosted a lot of events, including carnivals and dances, and had wire lighting. Today's amenities include an amphitheater, the vendor areas, walkways, turf, shade trees, river access, and the Whitewater Park. And of course, it hosts many special events. The amphitheater was constructed in 1992 and the Whitewater Park in 2004. Next. And then Barbara Bennett Park is bounded by Arlington, Island Avenue, and Eloise Avenues, south of the Truckee River. It's a 2.8 acre parcel acquired in 1906. Had been owned by the Newlands Company at one point. It used to be called Riverside Park, and it at one point was used for concerts, dances, and picnics. It was renamed in 1995 to honor Reno's first female mayor, Barbara Bennett, after her death. She served as mayor from 1979 to 83 and was instrumental in passing the construction tax, which helps fund parks today. And the park originally had bathhouses, a baseball diamond, and a bandstand. Tennis courts have been there since the 1920s and 30s. The current amenities, playground, tennis, basketball, and restroom were added in the 80s. And most recently, the restroom was replaced in 2006 and the playground in 2018. So currently there's a basketball court, tennis, playground, restroom, turf, shade trees, and some river access. Next. I wanted to just give a little background about the Arlington Avenue bridge replacements. This is an aerial view looking east. You can see the bridge on the left is the North Bridge going over the larger branch of the Truckee River. And then to the right is the smaller South Bridge going over the South Branch. And this photo simulation features the designs that were selected through extensive public input and the last public meeting, which was held in August of 2022. So you can see what the new bridges are intended to look like, and going on both sides of the park around the island. Next. Again, and here's a plan view showing both of the new bridges and Arlington Avenue going through Wingfield Park. The kind of gray diagonal patterning shows some new sidewalk paving. We're looking at just doing some more decorative sidewalks as they're replaced on both sides of Arlington Avenue. And both the new bridge on the north side will have an overlook and the lighting that will be complementary to the bridge designs. the footprint of the impact of the bridge replacements is really pretty much confined to the sidewalk, outside of the sidewalk areas. It doesn't really expand inside the park much beyond that. Next. So our schedule, here we are today at the Ward 1 map, and we're really kind of at the starting point of the master plan effort. We'll next be having some community and stakeholder meetings, and those will include some of the special event groups such as Our Town and other folks that host special events. We'll be reaching out to the Whitewater Park community specifically with stakeholder meetings to get input on what people would like to see in the river as possible improvements. And then we're going to have an online public survey, and that will happen in January, February. We hope to get a lot of public comments. And that's kind of going to help us do our programming. So with that information, we'll develop several concept master plan alternatives in March. And then we'll go to a public workshop in April to show those to the public and solicit input. We would develop our preliminary master plan based on the selected concept or a combination in May. Have another public workshop in June. And then we would hope to get Parks Commission input in June and then complete the master plan in August. And go to Parks Commission and Council by September this year. Next. So again, we really value the community input. That's what's going to drive what we design for the park. So we're going to be posting a survey on the City of Reno's website in the next few weeks that we would really want your input on. And, you know, we really want to hear what you think about the existing facilities, new amenities, what your priorities are, if there's any specific design theme over what's there now, any safety concerns, and then overall beautification. And also if you have any examples of other parks that you like or other features, those are very welcome because those are super valuable for our design team. Next. So now we're going to just briefly go through some of the existing facilities at Wingfield, Barbara Bennett, and the Whitewater Park. Next. So Wingfield, obviously, most of you in Ward 1 probably know these parks really well, but these are numbered and keyed to the list on the right, but we've got the river path below Arlington Avenue at the North Bridge. Of course, the amphitheater is really the big feature. We have turf and seating for the amphitheater, and then a lot of other turf. The river's edge is very prominent and distinctive with the routed boulders. We've got 3 pedestrian bridges, 2 east of Arlington and 1 on the north branch on the west side. Got a photo of spectators on the bridge, which honestly, that is one of the reasons we have an overlook on the north bridge, is because people just love to watch all the activity in the river. So that helped drive the bridge design really. And so I guess what I was going to do is have people just provide comments after each of these slides on, tell us what you like about the existing facilities, if you have any ideas or any comments on any new amenities.
Well, I would almost say, I would maybe not take comment on each one, but let them do it when the survey comes up, because this gives them a little bit of chance to think about it. I don't really want this to be a brainstorming session just today, but if they can do, when you have that survey open, give it some thought and everybody then can go at it. How's that?
That's perfect. And we will have pretty, very similar questions on the survey. So you'll have a lot of time and opportunity to answer those kinds of things. Well, then the next slide is Barbara Bennett Park. Again, existing facilities. There's the Island Avenue is kind of the chief access. It's got, the river edge on that side is a little unusual, and that's the photo on the lower left, in that it's a vertical wall. It's a little dissimilar to some of the other edges around the park. It's got an existing restroom, the basketball court, tennis courts, the playground turf, and then it has one ADA access, which is represented in that photo. You can see the removable railings going down to the river. So we'll be asking for your comments on that as well. I might make a comment that access point is proposed to be modified slightly as a result of the Arlington Avenue project. That's will be used for one of the construction access points. So that's something that in its final form could be reconstructed to be a benefit to the park and to users in the long run. Next. The Whitewater Park, this one we just noted, looking at the older plans that Gary Lacy did in the 90s, where some of the drop structures are and the put-ins. And again, we'll be looking for specific comments on these structures, and we're really thrilled to have Gary on our team because he already has a lot of great ideas for some new things that could be put in the river and things that could be done just to further maintain what's there now. Next. So I guess the last thing we'll be asking in the survey is what kind of new amenities you might like to see in the park. And we have thought of a few things. Next. For example, some parks are featuring bocce ball courts are popular. One of our thoughts is to maybe have a playground that has more of a theme that's really context sensitive, that really ties to the river, and though that's a recognizable feature. Pickleball, I know there's 2 tennis courts and they're popular, but pickleball is also popular, so that's another thing we were looking at. Perhaps some additional interpretive signage. Our team was thinking perhaps another pedestrian bridge that would connect the west side of Wingfield to Barbara Bennett might be of a benefit, because then you'd have circulation throughout all those areas. And that would make a really nice route for folks. Additional river access. We were thinking possibly that edge at the Barbara Bennett Park may be possible to have more of a boulder edge on that location. That would be attractive and possibly shift the parking away from the edge. Additional landscaping, and then there had been some mention of maybe having a small dog park on the Barbara Bennett side. And these will all be shown in the survey. Next. So anyway, that's what we're going to be asking for in the survey, and we'll be looking forward for your feedback.
So the survey, you're gonna have it on the City of Reno website,
Yes.
correct? So they'll send it out. You'll send it out to us and we'll get the survey, but how long is the survey open?
I think typically they're open for at least 2 weeks, maybe 3, has been kind of a good, especially now that we're through the holidays and, people are kind of don't have a lot of breaks. So
The reason I'm asking this is that you don't see the Parks and Rec Commission until June.
yeah,
So how are you gonna get the input on this survey unless you have somebody send it out to all the NABs, all the Parks and Rec Commissions to get it out to those groups?
well, it's an online survey, so it's just something that people, that once they're aware of it, they can submit their comments online.
Well, my point is that Park and Rec won't know about it until June.
Well, they would be notified about it as soon as the survey comes out too, but I guess we were not looking at going specifically to them with the survey, just as the Parks and Rec Commission. But.
The only reason I ask it is I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission
Okay.
also. And a lot of the stuff you're asking for is a lot of stuff that's usually brought up, and a lot of the input
At the beginning,
should be focused that way. I think that you need to get it out to I would say all the boards and all the commissions if possible. I mean, at least just forward it out to them, not just say it's assume somebody's gonna go look at it. At this group here, we're telling everybody that it will be on the city website and to go put your input in, but
Yeah.
nobody is saying that to any of the other like Parks and Rec Commission, which I think is important to present it to.
do you think it should be presented at this stage or just the survey and the?
I think that I personally think that you should do it June, but I think you probably should do it a little earlier just to let everybody know it's coming.
Okay,
Because the people that go to those meetings are interested in the Parks and Rec specifically, so just my thoughts.
I'll make sure that.
okay, well, we can look at it, yeah, we can definitely look at making sure.
Worst case is you go to public comment at a Park and Rec meeting. You don't have to do the full blown presentation, but just say 3 minutes, just say, here's what we're doing.
Yeah, Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So does anybody have any questions on the?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a comment anyway, sorry.
Okay.
Something that is missing downtown is a place that's good for kids. You asked for insights, here you go. Best park I've ever been to in the world. My kids are 18 and 21. They were there 12 years ago and they still remember going to this park because of how well done it was. And it is in a small town with, it's like the size of Fallon. So for a little town size of Fallon and a South American Latin country can figure it out. I think we can get some nice stuff in there that will help bring kids in town. Another thing is when I go down to the field for activities, having a line of porta potties is no bueno. Nobody likes those.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a better answer.
For the special event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something that's not a line of porta potties, maybe some permanent like.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just make a comment too. I have a son who lives in Portland, came down and has visited several times, and he said he thought Reno was the only city with a free downtown water park. And that's a tribute to the tremendous landscaping that was done in that river, the riverscape. And I hope anything that you do doesn't make it more artificial. Okay, I mean, I think that's critical in this bit because that's the draw down there. It makes it so special.
Yeah.
And in that regard, does your scope of work extend to trying to improve the habitat of the southeast channel portion of the southeast channel? That's a fairly degraded channel through there. And it would be nice if maybe some improvements could be done to that portion.
You're talking about
the south
wildlife
channel.
habitat.
Pardon?
You're talking like wildlife habitat improvements or,
Low, the benthic, the substrate, you know.
I have heard, it was mentioned, I think on one of the meetings that it's a little challenging to maintain the vegetation on that portion because it tends to get kind of dense. And so, you know, that's something we can definitely look at.
Back in the olden times, you couldn't float down that river from certain points to certain points. Because you get pulled out, but now that they've created this floating and make it a recreational activity, I think it's way better. The thing is, you just have these concrete walls
Yeah,
that go along that entire downtown. Like you said, if you could make it boulders or whatever, make it more inviting. And I've always thought that this city should do something with, if you've ever been to Milwaukee, and they have the river that runs right through with all the restaurants on there, you know, with just people go down there to eat. We have a little bit of it, but we don't have enough of it. It's not inviting to, that's what you're trying to do is invite not just people that are downtown residents or downtown just visiting, but the people that live outside to come downtown. Why do I want to go downtown? So that's really what we're trying to solve.
well, I didn't know till we first met Gary that the Wingfield area was just his like phase one thought for the water park. Or the Whitewater Park, his sketches included going further, so that's kind of intriguing, you know. I know there could be a lot of regulatory issues with that, but that would be pretty amazing, honestly, if it were able to continue somehow.
Back when I was in school at George Wingfield. Any other board comments? Anybody have any comments? All right, thank you for your time.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
We're gonna move on to item B3, Urban Road and Plumas Street sidewalk improvements. Alex Wolfson.
Okay.
All right, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alex Wilson. I'm an associate civil engineer with the Public Works Department. And I'm here today to give a quick overview of the Plymouth Urban Sidewalk Project. Next. So here's an overview of the project. It generally is pretty straightforward, as the title implies. It's on Plymouth Street and Urban Road. So it runs on Urban from where it intersects with Arlington to where it intersects with Plymouth, and then down Plymouth from Urban to Mountain View Drive, which is basically the south end of the Reno Tennis Center. Part of this will allow us to tie into the future sidewalk that's currently being constructed on Mountain View. Next slide. So this project really kind of breaks into 3 sections, in my opinion. So we'll start with Urban Road. This is what Urban looks like right now. Can you hit next again? With this project, this is what we're hoping to make it look like. It'd be new sidewalk on the south side of the road, a new bike lane going eastbound. There's currently only one going westbound, and then a landscape buffer where possible. This landscape buffer won't be there the entire stretch of Urban. What happens is as you go west to east, the right of way gets more constrained, so it kind of shrinks down as you go. Next slide. For Plymouth Street, so this will be the first half of Plymouth Street from Urban to the north end of the tennis center. Currently looks like this on the west side. And the next slide with the improvements will look like this. It's going to basically be new sidewalk on the west side of Plymouth and then retaining curb where needed to kind of hold back the golf course, since it's going to be right up on top of each other. Next slide. The third section of this project, I call it the tennis center section, because this is where you're parallel with the tennis center. So it looks like this right now. Just looking for Plymouth. Next slide. And then this is what it's going to look like afterwards. I just want to preface this by saying the wall probably won't look like that. PowerPoint only had so many options when it came to text your but also I tried to give my best shot there. I'm also not an artist, so I thought this was pretty good by my standards. But generally what you're going to see along this north section of the tennis center is there'll be sidewalk with a retaining wall and then handrail. What happens is the slope's pretty steep on that hill there. And so in order to protect pedestrians from tumbling down the hill, we have to do that retaining wall and handrail. As you go down from north to south, and you can kind of see it on the image there, when you get to about the halfway point going south down the tennis center, the hill levels out, and so there won't be any more handrail and retaining walls. It's only maybe about half the frontage requires that. Next slide. So just a quick overview of the funding and schedule for this project. One of the really cool things about this project is that it's primarily federally funded. The city submitted this project through a competitive grant process through the Nevada Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration, called the TA Set Aside program, specifically for programs like this that are, for pedestrian, bicycle safety improvements. And so it was successful, which means federal government's funding 95% of this project. City has to just provide a 5% match. The plan is construction will begin later this year. We're hoping late spring, early summer, and then it'll wrap up by the end of fall 2023. And with that, does anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
The fence that's by maybe it's out of scope, but the fence that's alongside Plymouth, can we make that a little taller? Because I drive by there frequently, there's tennis balls in Plymouth.
Oh, okay, so the physical tennis center,
Yeah.
so that's something
that's like scope here.
it probably is. We can certainly make sure that we bring it up with all the applicable groups. It gets tough. They are a little strict on, really focusing on what is necessary for the construction of the sidewalk. That's why even the landscaping, we'll have that landscape buffer on Urban, but it may not be, it's not going to be this fully landscaped strip. It's going to be, basic things put back, because we have to really only do what's truly necessary. But I think that's something we can certainly look at as well for just future park projects too. Anyone else?
Anybody online there? No questions. All right, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, everyone.
We're going to move on to item B4, 1200 Riverside Drive fire discussion. This is for information only. Councilmember Jenny Brackus and Rhonda Peace.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to let Rhonda speak a little bit more about how it's going from the residents' perspective. She and I had a conversation about a week ago, and she shared with me that there's been a lot of displacement, and that's very troubling. I don't know of anything more going on the city end. I have not been informed from our last meeting in January or December, excuse me, when we discussed the status of the city's investigation, their report. But I'll let Rhonda talk about how the rebuilding is going on. And also, if she would just mention what's going on with the other tower, because when they hooked up, I understand, to the other tower, because they couldn't find the hookup on the tower where the one unit was burning, they might have blown out some of the controls in the other towers. So I'm very curious and focused if there's been displacement of those people as well. So I'll turn it over to Rhonda to share with us what's going on in her community.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. I've really appreciated your support in this, including this time tonight. It's important that we have a record as much as possible about what happened that night. I'm going to make some requests to the city council on Wednesday, but I will be constrained by the 3-minute public comment period. And I don't think the full scope of this is understood by city officials, or if it is, they haven't given evidence of it. This last week, one of the Shannon from the assessor's office came out at my invitation to take a look at the property in the event that we can get a property tax break while so many of us are displaced, and the common property owned by our owners who are not displaced has been damaged. I'm told that she and her team took some photographs that I think the city of Reno ought to look at to understand the level of destruction that took place because of the water suppression efforts. When I spoke to this body in November, I had just received the fire department report. And I think I mentioned that evening that I did not find it to be a very full, complete, or comprehensive recitation. That's just like downtown. Of the events that took place that night.
You can keep going if you want.
Yeah, I'm temporarily living at Arlington Towers, and this is like a nightly event. So, I mean, all I hear is yelling, screaming, sirens, gunshots. So welcome to downtown Reno. In any event, after we got the fire report, one of our members requested through made a public information request of the Reno Fire Department for the dispatch logs, the dispatch tape, the pre-plan documents for our high rise, and a record of any of the fire inspections that had taken place for the last 5 years at our facility. We did receive the dispatch logs and the dispatch tape. We did not receive the pre-plan documents or records of any inspection. Why is this important? It's important because I believe they don't exist. At least I can say with certainty that the Reno Fire Department did not respond to the fire at 1200 Riverside Drive as if they had pre-planned documents in place. Why is that important? Not just because it's a good idea to have them, not just because the International Fire Code requires them, but they are required by Reno, the Reno Title 16 Fire Code. The Reno Fire Department in a high rise is required to have, for our high rises, schematic building plans They're required to have a building information card. That information card needs to include, among those things, the number of floors, the estimated population, the type of occupancy, the construction, the number of apartments. It was very clear from the response to our fire that Reno knew none of those things. For one thing, they didn't know how to approach the property even. When they parked, they couldn't get the fire hose up to the 11th floor. Well into the fire response, they sent a team to go up to the 12th floor for rescue. There is no 12th floor. You can hear on the dispatch tapes them asking the number of apartments on a floor. They had no idea of our population. One of the things on the dispatch tape revealed that the ladder, the rescue ladder, only went to the 10th floor. The people who need rescuing were on the 11th floor. They and we are all very fortunate that those people were able to go down the stairs to be rescued because the fire truck wasn't capable of reaching the 11th floor. What else did the systems tell us? They actually, the fire department was on scene relatively quickly, but 30 minutes into their response, they still had no water pressure to put on the fire. There was the sprinklers on the 11th floor where the fire was, and again, it was contained to one apartment with $150,000 worth of damage. And I'm kind of estimating of the common area and the other 23 apartments that were damaged, that we're going to spend in the neighborhood of $5 million because of the water suppression efforts. The only sprinklers that went off on the 11th floor. The fire department didn't know how to turn them off. You can hear the discussion about where the supply lines are. Was it part of the domestic water supply? My friend and colleague who's present with us here today, Michael Tripp, told me the other day that when he worked at Kmart, they sold a device that would allow you to plug a fire sprinkler that had gone off. So I went online and I looked it up. For $50, you can have a little device that would have turned that off. 20 or 30 minutes after they no longer needed that sprinkler, there was still heavy water coming down from it. Why didn't the fire department know how to turn off the water or have with them this little dinky device that could have turned off that sprinkler? There are a lot of questions I have, and I know that I don't have all of the answers. I don't even have all of the questions. The main question that I've posed from the beginning is, was it necessary to displace 24 households and cause an estimated $5 million worth of damage for a fire that was contained to one unit? And as Jenny mentioned, when they couldn't find the standpipes on the right building, they plugged into the other one, which blew out their fire suppression system. If I'm not mistaken, we still have people living in a high-rise without a fire suppression system operational because of ironically, because of the way the fire department put out this fire. There are two things that I would like from the city of Reno. One is an independent third-party investigation that deals with the fire department response. I think the apparent fact that the fire department is in violation of the city's own fire code by not having information cards on our high-rise in and of itself should ring alarm bells, if you'll pardon the almost pun. And any resident of any high-rise in the city of Reno ought to be asking whether or not the fire department is prepared to respond to a fire at their location if they don't have information cards, are not familiar with the buildings, don't know how the places operate. The second thing I want from the city of Reno is someone in the building department to be dedicated to 1200 Riverside Drive. Where we are right now is they have torn out completely four residential floors. They're on the fifth one right now. There are 3 more residential floors that still need to be torn out, as well as the common areas. But we're getting to a point where we can, in some of the units, start rebuilding. I want someone in the building department to be dedicated to our complex. So we don't have to wait in line for building permits. I want someone that we can call on, or our vendors can call on. They know who to talk to so that we can get through the building process. I think those two things are imperative at this point, based on everything that I can tell, listening to the dispatch tapes, which suggests that the Reno Fire Department was chaotic, disorganized, and may have contributed to the amount of damage that was done to my building and to the physical, emotional, psychological well-being of the people I'm here today representing. So thank you, Jenny. I appreciate your concern. I hope we can get your colleagues on the city council to be equally concerned about this issue with the fire department.
So you only get 3 minutes, so you're gonna,
I know, I
Yes,
have
and
to
there-
tighten it up.
you guys need to bring other people with you to say other words, but are you gonna type up your comments like you just said, and then you can submit those, right?
Yeah, I
As
can
your
submit
public
written
comment.
comments. I might do that. You know, actually, the other thing I noticed is when people call in on the tape, they don't get timed. You actually, I've heard people go way over on the call-ins.
It cuts you off.
That's not been my experience, but I think, Mike, your comments are well taken, that some written outline would be good on the record, but we're recorded. This is now part of the public record. And I'll make this other comment. I know that one of the reasons that Reno's not going to want to investigate this fire is because they're afraid of the liability. Part of the reason I want to make this record is if they don't investigate, if they don't learn from this, if they do not have the information cards on the other high rises, the next time the liability is going to be through the roof. So this is a public forum that's being recorded. It's on record now. So let's learn from this, or ultimately there will be further problems down the road.
Any questions? Jenny?
Yeah,
So,
just
yeah.
to summarize, I think Rhonda's requests are not unreasonable. I'll continue to advocate for those internally to the city manager. And I think that a lot is owed to these people who are displaced, particularly in explanation. The fact that there's going to be a complex insurance claims, hopefully not litigation, people, insurance adjusters working and all that should not prevent us from understanding what happened that night and the capacity of our very good fire department to respond to these sort of buildings that we're getting more of. I'm very concerned about this. It's been the greatest displacement of a group of residents that I've, constituents of mine in the 10 years I've been on. I haven't seen a complete clearing out of a building like this in my time on council. So I take it very serious, and I recognize that these folks are really hurting. A lot of them are very elderly, and it is life-changing for many to go through what they've gone through with more or less indifference from the responses I've been hearing, minimizing what happened and not really understanding an ability or any statement to say what's going forward, but I will continue to speak about it and I will continue to use the NAB as a forum to discuss this and how this community is rebuilt. Thank you.
Rhonda, that's your plus 3 minutes. right there.
Yeah, and let me just add this. I mentioned it the last time, but I want to mention it again. If there were ways to mitigate the damage to our elevators. And well into this, 2 hours after they were here, Reno was like, let's try to get the elevators running. They fried our components. We've been without elevators for more than 3 months. We're looking at another 3 months probably. You want to know how hard it is to tear down a building from the inside out and then rebuild it when it's a high rise and you have no elevators? It's tough. So the question that Reno owes us is an answer to whether or not it had to be that way.
May I make a comment or when it's time, please? Public.
If you want to make public comment, you want.
Quickly, I'm Dennis Black. I'm a resident of 1200 Riverside. I did not know this was on the agenda. I'm a new resident there. I just wanted to come and see what a NAD is about. So thank you for having me. But I just second that. I'm in my 60s. I take the stairs every day in and out. My wife and I both still work. The no elevator is a complete pain in the ass. And then I can't believe in this town of casinos and high rises that we don't have better fire protection, water theories, and elevator mechanics. A casino would not be out of an elevator for 6 months. This is ridiculous. So I just want to know on the record, and I'm speaking to anyone in particular, but it is really tough. We moved in, we just moved in officially permanently 3 weeks ago because our unit was the least damaged. So I did a little repair myself, and we moved in, and I had to move up furniture myself up a narrow stairway with no elevator. It's really hard. And I'm tired of it.
Dennis has the distinction of being the 25th apartment, 24 damaged. He's the only guy that got to stay put, so.
You have the whole building to himself.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions?
I have a question, and Jenny, I don't know if this is something that you can do in your role, maybe. In Ward 1, there are a good number of buildings that are high rises. Would it be possible to query the fire department to see if they do have the proper documents on file? So not when, or not if, but when something like this happens again, to know that our fire department does have all the tools and resources and information available.
Yeah, I have been asking those questions and I have not been getting answers. Presumably, the newer buildings that are going up, and many of those are outside of Ward 1, they're really around the university. One would hope through the building permitting phase where it's more digital, that those are getting logged in and somehow archived with the fire department somewhere. But older ones, whether, the city's invested a lot in digitizing old records. So my questions are, do you have the old records for the old buildings and those being archived with the fire department? How does high-rise response, residential and, like someone said, non-residential and casinos? What's the training approaches for that? What's the approach for making sure you're not putting, too much water on a building? I guess there's these elevator dams that you can put on. What happened that night? I've been asking and asking, but I cannot get any answers. I'm very, very frustrated by what's going on at the city in terms of this instance, and then the confidence that we are making the other one safe. So, hopefully a statement will be coming forward soon.
Okay, any other questions, comments? I'm looking around. I don't see any more. I appreciate you getting that on the record, and
Thank you for the opportunity.
keep us posted how this plays out. We're going to move on to item B5, development projects. I'm going to go on to B51, LDC 23-00032, Jacobs Globe Plaza Festival Area Amendment. Garrett Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, members. For the record, Garrett Gordon, represent Jacobs Entertainment. Tonight, I'm doing a presentation on a special use permit amendment. Next slide. So last May 2022, the Reno City Council, after going to the planning commission and then coming to this board, approved after a public hearing, request for conditional use permit to allow the Glow Plaza Festival grounds for outdoor festivals, concerts, recreation, events. As the chairman mentioned earlier, we need a good reason to bring people downtown, not just who live downtown, but all over the city as well as from the Bay Area, and revitalize and redevelop downtown Reno. So council approved the ability to do outdoor festivals and concerts. And I'm happy to report our first one will likely be in February. We plan to have a full concert series this summer. If you've driven by 4th Street and looked at this Glow Plaza, you can see a brand new stage is being constructed on the west side of the property. On the east side is a nice big shade structure for folks to get food and get drinks and really have a nice vibrant outdoor festival grounds in downtown Reno. Next to the Glow Plaza is the Sands Hotel Casino. You may have noticed a nice new paint job. There's currently renovations going on inside, and there'll be a new rebranding effort in the next couple months. The Sands casino building currently is undergoing, again, internal reservations, but also exterior, and there'll be new signage put on the outside of the Sands. You know where Mel's used to be, and there was the Mel's overhang right there on 4th Street. That's now been removed, and that area, that overhang will be replaced with a reader board to promote things that are going on in the Sands. But also for our request tonight, we want to make sure that not only Reno public, also the neighbors around the area. This was important when we went to the planning commission. The neighbors, the downtown residents said, we'd like to know what's going on at all times. Is there a concert coming up next weekend, a concert coming up next month? So this reader board, again, will promote new exciting things going on in the Sands, but also the festival dates. Who's coming? What are the dates? Will be on that reader board. So, in working with city staff, what we decided to do is to allow, this isn't a zoning issue, this isn't a master plan issue, it's strictly a signage issue. That if you're going to advertise for something, it has to be part of the project area. So we're simply tonight amending our conditional use permit to expand the boundaries of the Glow Plaza area to include the Sands parcel to be able to promote the festival concert series on the Sands signage. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Next slide, please. So again, here there's kind of real-time camera we have up. You can see this was January 5th. Obviously, we had a little snow, but you can see exciting that the stage is built, the outdoor shade covering is built, total all in about a $15-16 million project with the land. Eventually, we expect something like this, but with a lot more people, hopefully, in downtown Reno this summer. Next slide. So as you can see, the approval was from 2022. Here's 4th Street, the picture I just showed you of the festival grounds. Are these parcels outlined in red in order to advertise for and promote the concert series? You have to have the same site. Next slide. So we're simply adding the Sands parcel to the festival ground site in order to promote, again, the concert series, the dates, who's coming, to make sure that residents know what's happening, people who are out of town know what's happening. And it's certainly no different, which I don't think they even have a use permit. If you drive by the El Dorado, it's saying Shania Twain's coming at the event center, or whatever concert is coming. Like, they don't even have a use permit or any of this. We're just trying to be belt and suspenders and go ahead and amend our use permit to allow for it. Again, just to get the public notice of what's going on. Hopefully we have a very successful summer concert series. Hope I see all of you there. Next. So last slide again. Glow Plaza Festival site. We want to make sure we can promote on our new exciting signage what's happening here. So just adding one parcel, the yellow parcel, onto that use permit site definition. And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Size. What's the size of this reader board? Is it the size of the one on the Or the.
There's two, if you go back, and again, just for the record. The signs are not subject to this request. They've already been approved and building permits issued. They were allowed by right for the sales. So there'll be a reader board here.
Right.
I don't have the dimensions on me, but I do know the encroachment permit that I obtained to go over Court Street was smaller than what the encroachment was for that large Mel's building or Mel's overhang. So we're actually taking it off the public right of way and then wrapping it around the building. So I can email you that. And
What is the other big blue one I see on the side of the
And then
building?
this big blue one is for now an art installation. There'll be artwork up there showing, and then potentially we'll advertise on here. I don't have those dimensions, I can
So
certainly.
basically the same size as the GSR? Where you can see it across the,
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think it's gonna be that big, but I can.
but there's no, I mean, there's really nothing saying that it can't, or,
Those signs, again, we have building permits in hand. They're allowed by right on that parcel. So, just the question is, can we, in addition to come along here saying, come into the new Sands restaurants, come stay at the Sands, come into convention center at the Sands, we'll say, hey, here's the summer series going on at the Glow Plaza. Which, again, when we heard from neighbors downtown, it's actually a condition of approval in our use permit to make sure we have signage of when the events are coming, so they can attend or not be there, or, do what they want to do, but that was part of the discussion of making sure that there's plenty of public notice of what's happening at this event center.
so other board questions first, we'll go with board questions. Go ahead.
I don't know sign ordinances. Is there a sign ordinance that says if you're using that reader board, you can only advertise what's going on in that parcel?
Correct. So that's why we're here. So you have, it's site, so you have on premise and off premise signage. So you can only advertise for what's on your site.
For what's going on there.
Correct. And so what's going on our site, if you go forward. Original approval, Ward 1. All these parcel numbers are part of the site. We're simply just adding the Sands parcel number. Again, hopefully have a very successful concert series and make sure we can give the public and the residents and tourists notice of what's happening on this thing.
So you're gonna use the signs, or Sands is gonna use the signs to advertise whatever they're doing anyway.
Correct.
The only question here is what you put on the signs.
Correct. Do you see any, I guess, negative impact with saying next Friday night, Billy Joel's playing? I mean, Billy Joel's not coming, but I'm saying, I think, all of us driving downtown, we look up and see the El Dorado, oh, look, Shania Twain's coming, same thing.
That was my question, because I saw exactly what you mentioned with, the row properties advertising stuff, that's not theirs. So it's like, what's for, why is this a question? So.
But parcels are even owned by the city. not-
Thank you, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good question, I think.
Other board questions? Anybody out there? All right, we can go on to Lori.
Councilmember Breakfast.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
Jennifer.
and I'm sorry, because I'm online, the PowerPoint did not advance on my screen. So maybe this was in there. Is a staff member there also who was talking? Usually sometimes we have staff members. Was there a staff member there?
This is part of it, the planning department.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's answered in the PowerPoint, but it says it's a request to amend a conditional use permit LDC 22-00038. What does it say? What was that? Wasn't that conditional use permit to establish like a plaza or something? What was the trigger of that conditional use permit?
It's the outdoor recreation.
Outdoor recreation. So, but isn't this changing then all of those other parcels into a casino parcel then, if it's getting tied with the Sands property? Because those were questions that were raised during the development agreement. And it said, no, this isn't part of the casino property, but now it is part of the casino and a casino operation. So I'm just wondering, what is it, what is the trigger to establish a casino on all those parcels?
Councilman Breck's great point, and we heard you make this comment during this initial public hearing. So you'll see a condition of approval coming with this request that says there is absolutely no extension of any gaming rights whatsoever on the Glow Plaza, and whatever was approved to do on the Glow Plaza, you can't now do on the Sands parcel. So not a zoning issue, not a use issue. You'll see it's very narrowly tailored to just being allowed to put the events happening on the Glow Plaza on the Sands signage, and that's it.
Well, let me ask you, because I don't think you quite, and this is just a code interpretation. Say today I wanted to acquire one of those parcels and I, like I said, I heard him refer to all the APNs. Say today I, Jenny, wanted to acquire one of those parcels and establish a casino, unlimited gaming casino on there. What would I have to do?
You would have to go through any process that's required under the zoning code, which on that specific parcel, honestly, I don't believe you can even do zoning gaming there, because the only other gaming overlay area in the Keystone District was where In and Out used to go. There was gaming.
Okay, so
overlay. And
gaming is, okay, so gaming is not allowed there, but now it's being part of a gaming parcel. Okay.
No, it's not. That's not accurate. What I just said was no gaming is allowed on any of the Glow Plaza parcels, and that's a condition of approval that clarifies that out of respect for your comments during the public hearing. So this is not about gaming at all.
I mean, I don't know if this goes to us or just the planning commission. I'm really trying to understand the code or interpretation that even let the request come in the door this way. As an amendment to a condition rather than establishing gaming on these outlined parcels. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
And that's a good point, because I at first questioned, well, do we need to do this? Because El Dorado advertises on their parcel what's going on at the event center, but given the attention that's gone on with the Reno Neon Line District, we thought we would be very transparent and belts and suspenders, and came forward with this request to get input from here at the planning commission and appealed eventually to council.
Okay, so any other board questions?
What's the full language of your requests?
It's not, that's the cover page, but it is online for our full application.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, we're gonna move on to public comment. Lori Ray is here and she actually submitted written, but we'll give you the 3-minute public comment.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Lori Ray. I'm a resident of I'm here on behalf of Student Nevada, a nonprofit town dedicated to the student beauty and preserving the human character. I've also just with an aside, like I just served on the volunteer, like I served on this board for 7 years, Park and Recreation with Mike for a couple of years, and on the Chuck Mills Parks Foundation board, and I still volunteer for them. So, and my husband and I have a small business, and we are very committed and concerned about what happens in Lakewood. And this application brought me out on behalf of Student Nevada because we're concerned with signs and for our own reasons too. So, we think that the Glow Plaza application would circumvent Reno city codes to get sign regulations they aren't entitled to as a property in a mixed use zone. The Glow Plaza is entitled to a 30-foot tall sign with digital signage, but apparently that's not enough. They want the unlimited sign regulations that only casinos can have. So except for gaming, no other business in the mixed use zone like the Glow Plaza, no one can have a sign like that. And so I think it's important to note that for many, many decades, Reno has had sign regulations, and as well as many communities across the nation. And for just as long, sign owners and digital and billboard owners and developers have tried to get around the sign codes or take the communities to court for their regulations. And what we found is as long as the cities regulate fair, give everybody the same opportunities under the sign code, and only regulate for aesthetics and public safety, then we have the authority to regulate signs. And in fact, our sign code does regulate based on aesthetics and based on public safety. And so we're in good shape that way. And the existing code is on our side and against this application. Because as he said, the Grove Plaza is trying to advertise on a casino line. And only, according to the code, it says only legally established, non-restricted gaming operation land uses may use the gaming overlay sign regulations. So that's allowing, if this goes through, that will be allowing the Grove Plaza which is not a casino, to advertise as a casino on a casino sign. And so it's just not allowed under the code. And one of the things is that billboards are banned. We did a lot of work to get that banned, and digital billboards are banned. This stand sign would be a legal on-premise sign if they only advertise their own, activities on the premises. The Grove Plaza, even though they try to bring the stands into their property area, that doesn't change the fact that they can only advertise the stands activities, not the Grove Plazas.
Right, that's your 3 minutes.
No, really.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
We have your submitted.
okay, so just take these things into consideration, take a look at that. The stands, the Grove Plaza can advertise all kinds of ways without using a sign like that.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your time. So we have one more public
Yes.
comment.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
No, as in I could respond.
We're gonna go on to this next public comment.
Mr. Hera, you should be able to unmute and give your comment. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is John Hara, and I'm also associated with Scenic Nevada. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up here is that the presentation was difficult to follow from the standpoint of that none of the slides advanced. Chat was disabled, so it's been hard to kind of like join in here. But I think you guys need to realize what is being sold here. So there's a lot of words were used, such as replacing the reader board, not a zoning or a master plan issue. It's just a sign issue. We're simply adding signs to promote, no different than the El Dorado. And the rationale behind this is that residents have told us that they want to know about festival dates. But this innocuous sort of billing is going to leave the city of Reno with another version of the GSR sign on the other end of town. It's going to transform that neighborhood. And it's not fair from a competition standpoint of other businesses and who will eventually kind of catch on to this and go, well, why don't we have the ability to start advertising like this? And this is kind of an end run around Reno's kind of double standard sign laws that are in place right now, where the casinos can do all of this stuff and put giant video screens, 9 to 10 story video screens up. And believe me, the neighbors, the citizens of Reno don't want more versions of digital billboards up on the sides of buildings right now. And this is what you guys are potentially looking at happen if if this amendment is approved. So hopefully you'll read some of Scenic Nevada's rationale behind this with the written comments, because Lori didn't get a chance to finish. But what you're going to see here is that there's innumerable reasons not to just accept this wholesale sort of minimization of it's just a signage issue, because these signs, once they go up, just like the GSR, are hugely impactful on the visual aesthetics of the community, the safety for drivers driving around there, and the quality of life for people who are around there, in addition to businesses who are facing, does this mean now that I, as a small business owner, how do I compete fairly for this, advertising space in the commercialization of public spaces, it starts a dangerous slippery slope of sign wars. Anyway, that's my comment.
Right, thank you for your time. So I've mentioned this before, but this is for information only. This board doesn't vote on anything. This goes next to the planning commission. We have the ability to do development project review forms, so I would suggest anybody that has any thoughts, but those, fill that out. It goes to the planning commission, who then looks at that. They're ultimately the ones that are going to make the decision before it goes to city council. So I'm going to let Mr. Gordon finish out. We're not going to make this a debate tonight, so.
One more.
We have one more. Let's just do one more public comment. So we'll give you a chance for that.
Thank you, sir.
Art Ringo, you should be able to unmute and give your public comment. You will have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I won't take 3 minutes. Yeah, I just wanted to say, yeah, the presentation was extremely difficult to follow. As was stated, we couldn't see the progression of the PowerPoint. And unfortunately, I was not able to hear Lori. The acoustics in there are quite bad. As a city planner who over the years ago had helped develop sign codes, we used to have a saying, if everybody shouts, no one can be heard. And we're having more and more shouts taking place in downtown Reno. By the way, I'm at the Montage. So it's a big concern. Obviously, I understand that the NAB doesn't have the authority to do much with this other than to hear it. And I appreciate the fact that it was brought to the NAB. But the Planning Commission will have some authority, so we'll probably address the issue there. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
If anyone else wishes to give public comment on Zoom, please raise your hand to indicate that. No one else has raised their hand.
All right, Mr. Gordon, you can go ahead and finish your presentation.
I just make 2 comments. One is, this is rooted to Reno. I mean, I think we've wanted downtown to be cleaned up for a lot of years. We have a developer who's invested over $15 million into this festival grounds, and we're really excited to see all of you and have a very successful downtown to really finally have progress forward in compliance with Reno's downtown action plan that says activities, locals, tourists, concerts. This is it. So we're excited. And second, for the record, today, the district court dismissed a petition for judicial review against Scenic Nevada that they filed against the development agreement because they did not have standing. So I would want the record to reflect today. I also believe they do not have standing for the points they made today in compliance with what the judge issued earlier this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight. Remember, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on. So take this, we're gonna go to the planning. You guys are gonna go to the planning commission next. Bring it to there. So if all the board members have the ability, can you guys take this out in the hallway, please? Thank you. Take it, Lori. Thank you. All right, they can take it in the hallway. So you guys can do a development project review form, make your comments, it'll get put to the planning commission. And that's where this will be taken. So we're going to move on to item C, board commission committee member reports and announcements. Anybody?
No.
Like none, Mr. Chair.
All right. Next item, future agenda items.
I want to bring up again, I did last meeting again, the need to have a discussion on stormwater program. I think the fact that we have a large development that we reviewed last meeting with no detention controls, and yet here we have the city of Reno proposing to tax people for stormwater management. It's just incongruous. Also, I think we need to talk about the use of ditches as part of the stormwater program, particularly as it impacts Ward 1. And I'd also like to see us broaden that discussion out to tie stormwater and water supply more closely together, because they should be they're very related, particularly since more and more of our precipitation is going to occur in the form of rain and runoff as opposed to snow. So, I mean, we're experiencing it now. And really, it seems to me that we view these two things in terms of water supply and stormwater management totally separately. And I believe they need to be fully integrated. But I think we have serious stormwater issues in Ward 1, and I think it's time we had a more full discussion about it.
And then, any other future agenda items?
Is there public comment?
Waiting. Your brother?
No,
No, no. All right, public comment. 3 minutes.
Forgot about it. It probably wouldn't have gotten so hot if I didn't know. But I just wanted to add, when you brought up about the lawsuit and that we don't understand. There were two, in our lawsuit, there were two things filed. One was, it's called a petition for judicial review. And the other one was called with mandamus. And they said we couldn't have a petition for judicial review, but we could have the writ of mandamus. And that's going to be a hearing in, I think it's District 4, which is selling home. And she said, we do have standing on signs. We can bring this to the court. And for him to say, for Garrett Gordon to say that we were dismissed, we don't have standing, as if we should just, not be up here talking about signs is wrong. We only told half the story. We were dismissed, we came on the one thing, but we are going forward on the writ of mandamus. And we'll see, what the judge decides. And I just want you to know that's what that situation is. You only tell half the story.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Anything out there?
Anyone wishing to give public comment in the Zoom meeting, please raise your hand to indicate. There's no-
All right, we're gonna move on to item F, adjournment. This is for possible action.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you, everybody.
7:38.
Great.